My name is Dick Rogers, and I'm an entomologist working with Bayer CropScience. My specialty is honeybees, and I've been working with honeybees since the early 1970s when I started with 1 or 2 hives. I've been a semi-commercial beekeeper. I have been involved in pollination. I've been a bee inspector, a provincial apiculturist in Canada, and also a contract researcher doing honeybee research. Honeybees truly do have challenges. Bee health is a major issue that really, without human intervention or assistance, honeybees will have a hard time surviving on their own in the wild. The reason for this development, which basically has occurred in the last 2 to 3 decades, is because of the global movement of bee parasites and pests and the introduction into the US and Canada and other countries. Mainly the Varroa mite started it all, and since then we've had tracheal mites introduced. Viruses are being vectored by the mites. Even viruses that we've had but have not been a problem are now becoming a problem because of the stress that the mites are imposing on the bees, the vectoring and the damage they do during feeding on the bees. And so altogether, these are key factors in the problem with bee health. There are other problems, like the traditional problems like American foul brood, European foul brood, chalk brood, sac brood, just to name a few. And there are also other new pests and parasites. For example, the new species of Nosema, which was recently discovered. We don't know a lot about it or its impact. We think it's serious in some countries, but maybe not so much in other countries. But altogether, all of these disorders acting together and in various combinations are causing serious bee problems. One of the important roles of bees in general, not just honeybees but all species of bees, is to pollinate crops. And in many countries there are some of the major crops, like in the US it's almonds, blueberries, apples, certain vegetable crops, all rely on insect pollination to achieve the yields that are commercially viable. In small fields you can you can basically rely on native pollinators, so these would be solitary bees, bumblebees, feral colonies of honeybees would maybe be adequate. But in modern agriculture, when we're growing large acreages or hectarage of crops, these native and wild pollinators aren't sufficient. So to achieve the pollination we need for commercial production, we have to supplement the insect species and the best candidate are honeybees, because their numbers are easily increased, they can be moved from place to place when needed, and they do a darn good job of pollination in most cases. Now, to achieve the increasing numbers that we need requires specific management undertakings, and so this creates a lot of extra work for beekeepers, where they have to split colonies in 2 or 3. They have to raise queens to supply to these new colonies they've created. And once they've created them, they have to stabilize them in pallets and strap them together, load them onto trucks and transport them many hundreds, even thousands of miles. With migratory beekeepers who service the pollination industry, they will travel from California to Florida and then up the coast to Maine just to pollinate blueberries, and then back again. So it's a huge stress on the bees to do this. Well, my biggest concern with bee health and what's causing it, the problem, would be Varroa mites. I think that's the number one issue, that if that problem could be solved in an efficient way, in a least toxic way, the bee health would improve substantially. It would reduce the impact of viruses, reduce stress levels on the bees, and we'd be able to cope better with the more traditional types of disorders at that point. So that would be my biggest concern right now. Well, funding for bee research has always been insufficient, and I've been in the business of keeping bees and studying bees and doing bee research for well over 30 years now, and in most of that period of time it was a struggle to get even small amounts of funding for even the most important projects. Since the 2006 and the media coverage and various political interest, funding has become more readily available. There is more funds. It's still insufficient, and there's still a lot of competition to access those funds, which creates its own set of problems for researchers. So it would be nice to eliminate the need to compete as a researcher for funds and to be able to direct the funds where it's most needed without being influenced by special interests. Well, my background is as a beekeeper and also as an extension person, so I've always been talking to beekeepers and working with them on a one-to-one basis, and training events, field days, classroom training, and I find that there are lots of opportunities for training, but there's still an insufficient amount of training, and one of the reasons is anybody can keep bees without any special requirements to achieve a certain level of training. And so even though there may be opportunities available, they may not be taking advantage of it, and also there's no standardized format for the trainers and the curriculum. I personally like to get out and actually talk to the beekeepers, look at the problems they say they're having, interact with them on a in the field type of basis, and it's amazing what you can discover. You can not only educate them, but you educate yourself as well. I mean, I don't think anybody knows everything about beekeeping, so even if you're a new beekeeper, the experienced person can learn from them and vice versa. So it's very key that we keep close ties with the beekeeping community and work with them and learn from them as well.